Lukashenko became an unwitting participant in the March 8th celebration in Washington. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, while awarding the absent opposition leader Maria Kolesnikova in the nomination Women for Courage, mentioned the President of Belarus as the last dictator of Europe.
Maria Kolesnikova is a democracy activist in Belarus. Ahead of last year's presidential election, she mobilized women across the country to protest the rule of Alexander Lukashenko, Europe's last dictator. She's absent from the screen today because she's sitting in a Belarusian prison. The United States will continue to call for her unconditional release and for the release of all political prisoners in Belarus.
These are shots of a congratulatory video with the participation of Lukashenko himself. Of course, neither Kolesnikova nor Tikhanovskaya is in it. There is something that unites all of us, those who have been openly expressing their protest for half a year, and those who have not overcome fear, but are also waiting for change. This is the love and power of Belarusian women. Also, previously, only women were calling Lukashenko the dictator. Sometimes I get jealous of myself. I am the last and only dictator in Europe, so you came to visit me and saw the living dictator. And where else can you see him? For some time, the authorship of the nickname of the President of Belarus was attributed to the Secretary of State from the administration of George W. Bush, Condoleezza Rice.
The United States will always support is the evolution of democratic processes around the world and the desire of people to tap into the aspirations of their populations for freedom. And we will support the idea that elections, when they are held, should be real elections. They should not be sham elections, and the international community ought to be prepared and ready to help Belarus to carry out free and fair elections in 2006.
However, as Lukashenko himself explained shortly before the elections of 2020 and the beginning of his sixth term, he was first called the last dictator of Europe by another woman who worked under Clinton. I was called the last dictator of Europe a very long time ago. This nickname was given to me by Albright, Madeleine Albright. She was the US Secretary of State. Perhaps that time I didn't quite fit into the standards of democracy of the West. Now they realized that probably there is some rational kernel in Lukashenko's policy, and the order and stability that we have in Belarus is not entirely bad after all kinds of green, yellow, pink vests. Protests in Belarus started immediately after the elections. In February, Tikhanovskaya, in an interview with the Swiss newspaper Le Temps, admitted that Belarusian opposition had lost the streets. Russian ambassador to Belarus, Dmitry Mazintsev, in an interview with RBC TV, suggested that Western rhetoric towards Belarus will become more loyal. Nevertheless, the goal to gain influence will remain the same. Let me allow myself a personal assessment. It seems to me that today the West is rethinking the format of pressure on Belarus. The harsh, unprecedented, non-legal pressure that we saw last year since the election day, I think will change to a more elegant, subtle, smarter job. What do I mean? Today, they didn't manage to maintain a confrontation in the streets. It is clear that the political system and the power system of the state resisted this challenge. But the task of provoking situation here and the task of separating Belarus from Russia, unfortunately, has not been put aside. Earlier, Lukashenko claimed that he would not be president under the new constitution of Belarus. The authorities plan to write the document by the end of this year. The so-called line of succession is also out of question, according to Lukashenko. There are lots of rumors about the transition of power, Now Lukashenko will hand over power at least to his eldest son, and he will rule the country. I often said that in our family this has never been discussed and cannot be discussed, because not a single child of mine will be President of Belarus after me. Lukashenko has been in power for more than a quarter of a century, the longest of all the current heads of state of Eurasia, with the exception of Iranian leader Ali Khamenei. Joe Biden also sees Lukashenko as a dictator. He expressed his opinion when he was running for the presidency against Trump.